We are here with Bernard Robbins for Comedy Hype Plus. Bernard, thank you so much for your time today. My name is Tina Sampay. I'm a journalist from South Central, also known as Slauson Girl. So today we're going to have a conversation about your experience as a former Los Angeles police officer and what led you to quitting the department and subsequently filing a lawsuit. So, how are you feeling today?
I'm excited to be here. I'm happy that you picked up the story. I know a lot of the work that you do in the community, and we appreciate you. So I'm glad that you picked up this story. I think it's important.
Yes. So yeah, you reached out to me and yeah, I thought that it was definitely important to bring this to a wider audience, which is why we're here on Comedy Hype Plus today. So, let's just get into it. You grew up in Los Angeles in South Central and you were a LAPD officer for 3 years,
Yes.
but you quit.
hmm
Talk to me about the incident that led up to you quitting the department.
Okay. Yeah, I started the academy in August 2019. After the academy, I ended up at West LA, which is near like the UCLA Brentwood area. It's bordered by Santa Monica, Beverly Hills. It's a nice area, upscale area. I did a probation year there, so it's basically your first year out of the academy where you pretty much are still in training, you're learning what to do and how to be a police officer. After my probation year, I ended up in Southwest Division, which is pretty much in between like Dorsey High School in the jungles and USC. We also go from like 54th Street to Adams Boulevard. I was there for maybe about 2 years, and immediately I saw like a shift in the when I switched divisions from West LA to Southwest. I saw a shift in the energy that the officers were giving, citizens, civilians, particularly minorities, blacks and Hispanics. Um, for me, it was rough trying to figure out like how to go about the situation. Obviously, you'd hear stories, and there's even some things that I've been through before I got into the LAPD. And so there I was, 22 years old, seeing some of these things firsthand. I was kind of trying to figure out how to go about these situations. August 2022, I was filming a movie that I'm working on. It's unrelated to the LAPD. I was on an off day, and we were almost done with the film day. Me and the sound guy, we had left one location, and we had went back to my house. We were about to film two scenes at my house. The rest of the crew had got there a little bit before us, and so there was no parking, so we had to park across the street. We arrived to the house maybe about 7:20 p.m. and we were sitting in the car talking, just chopping it up. I think we were talking about filming or something like that. And after about a minute and a half, we finally got up to get out of the car. And as I get up and open my door, I see three officers parked right behind us, kind of parallel, getting out of their vehicle. And me being a police officer, I understand, like, okay, they're about to initiate a traffic stop. They were looking at us. They were behind the door, so I didn't see if they had their hands on their guns, but I think that's the protocol usually when you're about to do a traffic stop. So I immediately put my hands up, told them I was a police officer. I had my ID and my firearms on me, which I'm allowed to carry as a police, or I was allowed to carry as a police officer. And so they told me, okay, just get up against the fence. And so I went with protocol. I was a police officer, but at the end of the day, I'm a black man with guns. So I went with protocol. And I got up against the fence. They handcuffed me and my passenger. And the next thing they said, they cuffed me, they took the guns out, and the next thing they said was, okay, we're going to go into your car. And I told them, no, you guys don't have consent to go into my car. At that point, I didn't do anything wrong throughout the night, but for me, it's like, why are you guys detaining me? I just, I have my gun on me, but I told you I'm a police officer. All you have to do is check my ID. And they were just like, oh, we just want to go in the car and make sure you got nothing else in there. And then my passenger, he had a bag that when he saw them, he put it back in the car. So they were asking him about his bag. And I told him, just don't talk to them because you, they told me that they stopped me for tinted windows. If you stop the driver for tinted windows, then you shouldn't even be talking to the passenger. He has nothing to say. He shouldn't even be detained right now. He hasn't committed any crime. He hasn't been suspected of any crime. So why is he being detained? And they start telling me, oh, you're a police officer. You shouldn't be telling him not to talk to us. And I said, you gave him your name, right? he said, yeah. I said, that's it then. They don't need nothing else from you. Like they wanted to get into, oh, where you from or this and that. And there's no need for you to talk to them, bro. If they're going to give me a ticket for tinted windows, then we will let that be that. So after the first 5 minutes of them pretty much going back and forth with me about why they stopped me and if they could go into my car, they finally checked my ID. And my police ID is right under my driver's license. So the officer went to pull out my driver's license and he saw that I had my police ID right under it. And he was behind me. I kind of like looked at him and I saw him kind of like do a double take as if he didn't want to see it, or he didn't want to believe that I actually had a police ID on me. And so after that, I started to ask him, okay, you see my police ID now. Why am I still in cuffs? And they went to start saying, oh, we can't verify that you're an officer. People quit and keep badges or make fake badges. He said this happens all the time. I've never heard of anything like that happening in my life. I've been stopped by CHP before as a police officer. I showed him my badge and he said, all right, you're good to go.
How did it make you feel in that moment when they're telling you that they can't verify that you're a police officer?
I felt betrayed. At that moment, I pretty much knew that my time in LAPD was done.
In that moment?
In that moment, I knew that it was done. I started to ask them to just request the sergeants because for me, I wasn't going to allow them to go into my car under any circumstances. Mm-hmm. But if they were going to do it illegally, we were going to at least have sergeants out there. So after they took about another 15 minutes saying that, then I started to ask them, okay, can we just get some sergeants out here? I understand where this is going. And, this is probably the end of the line for me. So yeah, it felt, I kind of felt betrayed because for me, it's like, I've worked so hard, like for all my life pretty much to stay out of trouble. I had two brothers that passed away, two of my, like we have the same father. They passed away a couple of years before I got into LAPD. So for me to shift through all these things and still get the same credentials that you guys have, and for you guys to treat me like this because of the color of my skin, I felt betrayed. It was pretty traumatizing.
So you mentioned feelings of betrayal, but were there any feelings of like pain in that moment?
There were some feelings of pain. I think throughout the incident, well, so we were detained in front of or across the street from my house for about an hour and a half. After like the first 20 minutes, my film crew and my family started to come outside. My parents came out, and it was also humiliating because it's like I'm trying to be professional. Here we are. We haven't committed any crimes. My film crew, my family obviously know I'm a police officer, and they see the way I'm being treated. It was humiliating. I cried for a while. Not because like I was scared, being in cuffs. I still haven't really like debunked like all the emotions yet. But it was a lot of emotion. It was a lot to try to like take in that moment and just understand like you can try so hard to be their version of a good person and still they're gonna treat you how they want to treat you when they see you. So it was there was a lot of emotion. My mom said that she felt like she was watching her son about to get taken away to be lynched. The things that they're doing to some of us, like some of the things that they're doing, like they did to Kyrie and Kanye, these are modern day examples of what they used to do to slaves when they did something that the powers that be didn't like. So, yeah, there was a variety of emotions that evening.
Okay, so we kind of pivoted a little bit. You mentioned Kyrie and Kanye West.
Yeah.
And, just so that we're clear, what exactly do you mean about, this is the kind of things that they do to Black people when we're doing things that they don't agree with?
So with the Kyrie situation, I feel like it was a thing where they were pretty much going to get him to bow down to them. When I say them, I mean
like the power structure?
Yeah, obviously the NBA, but I would say, yeah, just the power structure in America. And so it's like, and basically I felt like they were telling him, hey, nigga, you got out of line and now we're going to punish you for it. And you need to step back in line. But I think that it was more so to show the rest of us that this is what's going to happen to you if you step out of line. Mm-hmm. And the same thing with Kanye West. I think it was to show every other black celebrity, if you talk too much or if you step out of line, this is what's going to happen to you. With my situation, like even afterwards, it took me about a week and a half to resign. They gave me some time off to kind of try to get over it and think about, what had happened. I felt like they wanted me to pretty much I felt like they wanted me to pretty much denounce my community or my association to my community, and I wasn't gonna do it. The guy, they said they found a illegal firearm in his bag. I understand that was against the law. However, he didn't seem like a bad guy to me. He wasn't out trying to commit a crime. He didn't have his gun in the air. He wasn't trying to shoot anybody. We were trying to, film a film project. So I wasn't going to denounce my community or say, oh, he was just a bad guy. And I wasn't going to apologize to them for just just being black. I wasn't going to do that. So I decided to resign.
So when we had our first interview about the situation, you mentioned to me how your time in the Los Angeles Police Department, you were able to draw parallels between law enforcement today and the origins of policing in America, which was runaway slave patrols. Can you talk to me a little bit about how you began to make that connection?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I got to Southwest Division, I noticed that, well, actually, the first time I noticed it happened was in West LA Division. I was working with a partner officer. He wasn't from the U.S. He's from like Ukraine. He was an older officer. He had a little bit more time on than me. We did a traffic stop on a black guy, and I think he had a black female with him. And he told the officer that he was from some gang in South Central. And immediately the officer, I guess this was like, I've never been trained on this at the time because it was West LA. But I guess the officer went back to his training, and immediately when he heard that, he said, okay, give me a second. He requested additional unit. When they got to us, he got the guy out of the car, he handcuffed him, and he basically went, it's a script basically. What are you doing out here? Are you on parole or probation? Do you have anything illegal on you? Where are you headed to next? Things like that. I didn't really, at the time, I was maybe 6 months in. I didn't really think too much of it. But then when I got to Southwest, it started to happen a lot more frequently. I want to say at least 10 times I've noticed that they would go over the air and request additional units. And every time I got there, it was a group of black men. Most of the times, black men between the ages of 15 to 25. There was one time when it was an older group, but usually they were younger black men. And then 2 times it was Hispanics. But in my time in Southwest and West LA altogether, it never happened to a group of white young men or a group of, not even young men, a group of white men or a group of Asian men. And so for me, that's an issue. And so, like I said, it's a script. When they see us, it's okay, let's get everybody out of the car, let's handcuff everybody, let's pat them down, make sure they don't have any weapons. And then we go to who's on parole or probation, where are you guys headed, can we search the car, which usually they don't ask the right way. They ask, and it's out of policy the way that they ask to search the car. They pretty much say, hey, I'm going to search the car. And if you don't say, no, you can't search my car, then they're going to do it. But that's not in the policy of the LAPD. And so when you go back to slave patrol, what they would do when they saw black people out and, going wherever they were going, they stop them. Hey, where are your papers at? Where are you supposed to be? Who do you belong to? What's going on right now? Why are you outside? Why are you outside of bounds? Why are you outside your lines? And I think for them, they don't even realize that sometimes that it's like nothing's really changed. They just think that, oh, this is just how things are. But things are like that because that's how they started. Really what they do a lot of times is when policies have to be changed and when we pass laws, they find ways to maneuver around them. So yeah, that's the parallel between modern day policing and slave patrolling.
So how did you feel as a black man, black police officer, coming into a realization about this and then realizing that you're actually a part of that?
It was tough. So my first year in the LAPD, my probation year, that same year, George Floyd had been killed by the police and Breonna Taylor had been killed by the police. That's when the civil unrest happened. So it was very challenging. Morally, it was challenging for me. as a black man and as a police officer, it's like what are we supposed to do? And it's like I understand how we're supposed to be as police officers, but they aren't doing it. So it was challenging. I worked on a project with a friend, and I kind of started to mention to them about how they police our communities different than um, communities with primarily whites or Asians. And in that film, though, I remember saying like, I don't want to say too much, and I don't know if we should add this to the film because I don't want to get in trouble. So I was like really trying to figure out how to go about it. There were times where I thought about quitting, just because I felt like I was like letting my community down just by even being a part of it. But there was this one incident in Leimert Park where they were trying to find a guy who they suspected of robbery. So they set up a perimeter like around Leimert Park. But you know, if you're affluent with Leimert Park, then you know that they're always doing events there. So there was like maybe 200-300 people there that day. And I think the crowd thought that we were coming to shut down the block party or whatever was going on. So two officers pulled up to one specific spot, and I immediately told my partner, like, let's just go over there just to make sure that nothing goes wrong. We probably got out of the car maybe 20 seconds after they got out of the car. And I remember one of the officers and one of the civilians, it was a white officer and a black civilian, they were challenging each other to a fight. And I'm like, no, bro, we're not about to fight them. And so I went up to the black man. I shook his hand. Hey, what's up, man? We not here for y'all. We not trying to shut down the party. They just looking for one specific guy. If we find him, we out of here. If they don't, we out of here. He was like, all right, cool. He's like, this dude ran up. He ain't say nothing. He almost hit me with the car. I appreciate that. But the crowd kind of saw it, and the crowd really started getting riled up. So we ended up leaving. But in that moment, I kind of, it put me at ease because I felt like what I was doing was for the right reasons. I felt like if I wasn't there that day, that there would have been a riot and some people would have got hurt and arrested. So there was like little things like that that reassured me of what I was doing within the LAPD.
So you joined the Los Angeles Police Department because, you know, you wanted to be a positive reinforcement as a black man in blue. You know, for those of us who grow up in the inner city, we don't usually see a lot of black men who want to go into law enforcement. Why do you think that is?
Well, the media plays the biggest role in it. Like if what you see on the media is officers, you know, killing our people a lot of times, then you're not gonna want to join that. That's just natural. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things. Also, I mean, a lot of times we're taught from a young age, like, don't trust the police. The police come, don't talk to them. And I think I think that's justifiable in some cases, because the police they're there to do their job and make arrests. They don't really, especially if they're not from our communities. 9 times out of 10, they don't care about the people within our communities. So I think that, you know, those couple things is the main reasons why more young black people aren't trying to get into law enforcement.
And were there times that you ever felt that you were betraying black people or felt like a traitor to the community at all, you know, during the early days of you processing your identity as a police officer?
Yeah, there were a couple incidents that really made me like question. So one incident happened. It was a traffic stop. A unit requested additional unit. We got there, and it was 3 young black men. I think they were between the ages of like 17 and 19. They were in a pretty nice car, but that's not a reason to stop somebody. I don't even know what the reason for the stop was, but I remember I was standing next to one of the guys, and he started to cry. And I asked him, I said, "Why are you crying, bro?" And he said because they keep stopping me, and I'm tired of them doing this. They do it almost every day. And I didn't even know what to say to him. So the officers, they searched the car and they went through everything. They didn't find whatever they were looking for, and they let the guys go. And after that, I told the officer, I said, that young dude was crying. And the officer said, "Oh man, that means he probably did have a gun and we probably missed it." And like, for me, it's just like, no, that's not it, bro. Like they might really just be tired of the BS. Like, you know, we have emotions, we have feelings too. Like you would be tired of it as well.
How did you respond in that moment to the other officer?
I just walked away. I didn't know what to say. Looking back at it now, I don't know. Like I feel like sometimes I feel like I didn't say enough or do enough. But I think while I was in it, I was saying like, even if I had tried to say more, they wouldn't have listened. And I think that's why I kind of was like, after my incident happened, it was like, okay, that's it for me. Because they're not going to listen. They're not there to sit at the table and talk about how they can help mend some of the damage that they've caused. So I think it would have just came off as they would have thought I was a traitor to them, and nobody would have worked with me, and they probably would have tried to like get me fired or in trouble. And then the other incident, that was me and a partner officer walked into like a liquor store. We were gonna get some snacks or something. I saw a little black girl, and she saw us, and she looked at her mom, and she said, "Mom, are they gonna hurt us?" And she was like 4 years old, and I didn't know what to say. And like, to me, that's sad. Like, we shouldn't have to grow up like feeling like officers are there to hurt. They're supposed to protect us. We literally pay them our taxes for them to come and traumatize and brutalize and terrorize us. Those situations, those were like some of the worst situations that it really made me question if I was doing the right thing. I don't even think I've brought that up to anybody. I was shocked when I heard her say that, and her mom was like, "No." I think her mom said they're here to protect us, but yeah, there was definitely some times where I felt like I was kind of betraying the community.
And so how did you, kind of keep your own mental health intact and your emotional well-being, because it's like, Black people go to work every day in different capacities and have to deal with, microaggressions or whatever on the workplace. So, you talk about being a police officer, then, the issues of identity and race and police brutality, and then you wanting to be a positive reinforcement, but getting certain pushbacks and just seeing just the hypocrisies within law enforcement. How did you take care of your own well-being during this time before you quit? Where were places that you found refuge? Like, did you talk to, your wife, your fiance, your family members? Like, how did you keep yourself together?
Yeah, there were times where I would talk to either like my parents or my fiance. It wasn't that often. Because for me, I always feel like I want to be the person that people can come to. And my reality is that I feel like if I'm talking about my issues, that they won't, the people that need me won't view me as somebody that they can come to, which is something I still have to deal with and try to figure out, because I think as Black men, that's a lot of us, or probably just men in general, is that we feel like we always have to be strong and that we can't show emotion. And the time I was in LAPD, I was also trying to get my film going, and there was like one December where it was really rough. I don't even know how I got through that. We were about to film some of the project, and it fell through. But for the week leading up to, it was literally like either I was at work, or when I was off work, I was either literally sleeping, or talking to people about getting the project together. But we didn't end up filming. So for those next couple of days, my mind was just racing. I kind of felt like I was going to end up in like a hospital or something, because it was like my mind was in overdrive. And looking back at that night, when I was in handcuffs, I also felt a sense of relief, because I felt like I didn't have to be who they wanted me to be anymore, and I didn't have to like try to uphold to whatever their standards of a good person was anymore, because like I said, I knew that my time in LAPD was up. There was some pain, but there was also some relief in that moment, and just understanding that that part of my life was over with.
So let's talk about the 77th Police Department. In your lawsuit, you're also focusing on trying to get 77 Police Department gang unit disbanded.
Yes.
For those who might not be familiar with Los Angeles South Central, the 77 Police Department, which is a notorious station rooted in controversy, racism, and scandal, can you just briefly talk about this significance, or just a little bit about the 77 Police Department in relation to South Central?
Yeah, so that division is a part of South Bureau. South Bureau also has Southwest, and a couple other divisions. But 77 Division is probably the most, I would say, active division. There's also like a really huge, it's a traditional law enforcement, and traditional law enforcement is being racist towards Black people. over there to fit in, you have to go by what they go by, and you have to hold up to their standards. So you couldn't go into 77 Division as a police officer and say, hey, I want to talk to you guys about police reform today. They would look at you like you're crazy. And so with me, I want to get 77's gang unit disbanded because their whole function is based off of racially profiling individuals. Their job is literally to go out and look for people who look like gang members. And so that night when they stopped us, I understood why they stopped us. Like that's their function, that's their job. And so if you work 77 and you work, the rolling 60s, which is near where I live at, then you're probably gonna look for the young black male with the t-shirt on. My passenger had dreads. It's like the LAPD. They're trying to put policies in place to get officers to stop racially profiling citizens. But at the same time, it's like if you still have this function, something has to give. Either you guys aren't really doing what you say you're trying to doing, or they have to go. Both things can't coexist. So I think that it's going to be important for us to really make a push to get them disbanded. In the LAPD, they recently they put a new policy in place where you can't do pretext stops on citizens, and what that means is you can't stop a citizen for tinted windows, but then try to search their car for contraband, their guns, or things like that. So that's what happened to me that night. That was another policy that was broken that night, and that's what they do a lot. So it's like one has to give. You can't do both.
So they had already reformed the stopping of the no pretext stops, but the police still tried to do that to you that night.
Yeah, they still did it. And in the moment, I couldn't put the words together because I was trying to tell them like, hey, you guys know that what you're doing isn't right. You guys just said you put me over tinted windows. Why are you even trying to go into my vehicle? But I couldn't get the words out. This is kind of like nerve-wracking, trying to figure out what was really going on. But yeah, they did a pretext stop, which had I believe 6 months before they stopped me. The LAPD had put that policy in place. Another policy that they put in place is when they ask for consent to search your vehicle, they have to say it clearly. They have to say, hey, I'm Officer such and such, LAPD. I'm requesting consent to search your vehicle. Do I have consent? You can say yes or no. Also, you can stop me at any time if you start to feel uncomfortable. So they don't do that. When they stopped me, they said, hey, we're just going to go into your vehicle. And then also, if you say no, they can't be like, oh, no, just let me do it, man. Or, they can't try to convince you to change your mind. If you say no, that's it. So
what advice would you give to people that know their rights and know that their rights are being infringed upon in that moment? Like, do you kind of, you don't want to like combat the police, like what tips would you give on navigating those situations?
I would say if you get stopped and you feel like, not even if you feel like your rights are being violated, request a sergeant, get the names and serial numbers of the officers that have stopped you, and file a complaint. They do take complaints. They have to take all complaints actually. They investigate them. A lot of times they become unfounded, which basically means that nothing's going to happen. But it sets a track record for officers. So, if an incident does occur or, somebody does file a lawsuit, we can go back and look at that track record. Well, like, okay, this officer he's got 20 complaints for the same thing. Maybe some of them were justified, but something isn't right. Something isn't adding up. So I would say, file those complaints, request a sergeant. And if you can, sit down with a lawyer and see if you have something to go with. One thing that I really want to do is those officers that stopped me, I want to get their track records and see how many people they've stopped, see the age group that they stopped, the race, the margins that they stopped, and see like, okay, what's the parallel? What's really going on? Like, who are they really stopping? And why are they consistently stopping the same group of people?
Specific advice you would give to Black men on navigating traffic stops?
Yeah, I would say, obviously, don't fight the police. I know some of us are willing to die for our rights, but I don't think that's the game that we need to be playing right now. So I would say don't fight the police. Just stay calm, relax. I would say, and some people might not like this, but I would say kind of just go with their program. if you don't want them to search your car, don't let them. But as far as like when they stop you, just be a gentleman. Hey, officer, what's going on? Oh, I stopped you because it's okay. Here's my ID. Because a lot of times officers have said this. I'm just looking for guns or drugs. Well, they didn't say this specifically, but this is basically what they say. I'm just looking for guns or drugs. If they don't have it, I'll let them go. Rather, it's they passed a stop sign or it was tinted windows. But if they start, talking back, then I'll write them a ticket. And that's how a lot of the officers feel. So I would say kind of just go with the program. Be a gentleman. Just, like I said, just give them your ID. Obviously, like I said, you can ask them why they stopped you. If you feel like your rights have been, violated, then yeah, I would say request a sergeant and file that complaint.
So back to the 77 Police Department a little bit. The department has always been rooted as just a racist entity. We can talk about Chief Daryl Gates, who was over the LAPD from like the late 70s to like during the 92 riots. And he had a policy where he was bringing in folks that were from the South, men from the South to be on the police department, which really fed those racist ideas about Black men when it comes to policing. So today we see that the police department is, now 70% Latino, even though they could be seen as people of color, there's still issues that they have when it comes to stereotyping Black people. So although the demographics of the 77 Police Department and other police departments in LA have changed, do you still feel that it's rooted in racism?
Absolutely.
And a lot of these people are racist.
Absolutely. I think that it's their culture. We might get to talk about this a little bit, but even the situation with Tyre Nichols, it's the culture that's causing these officers to think, okay, if I see a Black man, then I need to be extra vigilant and I need to be extra careful in the way that I'm dealing with him, in a way where I'm kind of defensive, and defensive means offensive. So it's the culture that's really doing, it's doing the damage. It's not just because, it was more white people back in the day. Also, what I like to say about Daryl Gates really quickly is that, like, I think there's a statue up of him in the police academy. And so it's crazy that they idolize him, but for us, it's, that's a traumatic experience. So yeah, this thing that we're facing is deep. It's real deep.
So you mentioned Tyre Nichols. Growing up in LA, we have that situation with Rodney King. But with Tyre, the officers were Black. Were you surprised at all to see that they were Black?
I was surprised. I still, so I heard that like this might just be hearsay, but I heard that like one of the officers knew that Tyre was like talking to his ex-girlfriend or something like that.
Allegedly.
Yeah,
but
allegedly. And I don't know if there's any truth to that.
Yeah, we can't.
But it was surprising to see that like all those officers were Black men. But I think that goes back to the culture of policing and also the self-hatred that we've been taught in America. We've been taught to hate ourselves. Even some of the Black officers in my division, they weren't like friendly to the Black citizens, and I couldn't understand that. Even if the Black citizens wanted to be defensive against us, for me, it's like I understand it because of the past and because of some of the things that we've done as law enforcement officers. So to see that happen by Black men and to see that violence being perpetrated by Black men, it was kind of shocking. Yeah, it's very dishonorable, I would say.
Do you feel like a lot of Black officers kind of like ignore their Blackness to fit into the culture of law enforcement?
Yeah, I think there's a couple different situations going on with Black officers. I think that some, they don't even grow up in our community, so it's like they don't even have like our community's best interests at heart. Like their skin is dark, but they don't even identify with us. They didn't identify with us before they became police officers. Also, yeah, you got some Black officers that they get there and then they kind of just want to fit in. They don't want to cause trouble. But then also, I think that you have some areas where officers kind of, the Black officers, they stick to, like pretty much they group up and they try to stick together and support one another. So all in all, yeah, there's a couple different things going on with the black officers and why they don't, I would say why they don't speak up and speak out more in law enforcement when things go wrong.
So I just wanted to mention real quick, about the Tyre Nichols and these illegal traffic stops. What happened to you was an illegal traffic stop, and then what happened to Tyre was also an illegal traffic stop. How does that make you feel that, your situation, as, demoralizing as it was, it didn't lead to any violence, but we see this young man, he was beat to death off of this illegal traffic stop.
So, okay, so they're doing these illegal traffic stops. A lot of times we make it home safe. Like I made it home safe at the end of the night. On all the traffic stops that I was at where I felt like it was an illegal stop or something was immoral about it, all those black men, they still made it home safe. I mean, a couple went to jail. They had illegal things on them and they went to jail, but nobody was like beaten, nobody was killed. But then, yeah, you have those incidents where, and even if it is something minor, somebody roll over a stop sign, they shouldn't have to lose their life for that. And so, rather it is something minor, rather it's something illegal, we shouldn't have to lose our lives for going outside and being black. This thing that we're dealing with, it's really, really deep. I know when we talked over the phone, you asked me what are some of the things that we can do. I don't have a real strategic answer to that question yet because I'm still trying to figure out what we can do to stop those things from happening, to stop those situations like the Tyre Nichols incident. This is 2023. I think it was 2014 where Eric Gardner, they stopped him for like selling cigarettes and they ended up choking him out and killing him. And so it's like some of the same things are happening. They've been happening for decades and centuries now. And so we have to figure out, we as black people need to figure out what we can do to stop this from happening. Whether law enforcement and the government want to be on our side or not, it's up to us to figure it out. We owe it to our children and our grandchildren to figure out what we need to do.
Do you feel like it's fear of black people or hatred of black people that is fueling these police involved shootings?
I think that it's both. So we talked about the media a little bit and what role it plays. I think that a lot of times these officers from other communities, whether they be white, Hispanic, whatever the case may be, a lot of times the only image they have of us is something negative on social media or the media, TV.
Right.
So if you don't talk to a black man, if you don't know a black man, and all you have to go off of is whatever they're seeing on TV about, black men are monsters and we do this and we've done that in the past, and then you're gonna react, a certain way. I think that's fear, to be honest with you. But then also I think there is some hatred to it as well. I think that deep down inside you dislike what you don't know a lot of the times. And that's the part why I joined, because I wanted to be able to just sit down with them and show them like, hey, we just want to get home just like y'all. That's it. Like, we just want to get home. Yeah.
So you mentioned that, stations like the 77 Police Department are rooted in traditional policing. And recently, just this week, Eric Holder was sentenced for the murder of Nipsey Hussle.
Mm-hmm.
When Nipsey was killed in 2019, the police commissioner had a press conference with the city councilman and the mayor and some other people. And he revealed that Nipsey was supposed to be having a meeting with the LAPD that Monday. Nipsey got killed on Sunday. They were supposed to have this meeting on Monday. Just what do you think they could have possibly been, just from your experience as a police officer and just understanding, just different aspects of, policing and community and things like that. Do you have any idea what they may have been prepared to talk about that day?
I would say they were probably going to talk about how they could get on a just like a community level with the community. Obviously, Nipsey Hussle was a known gang member, but he was also, I would say, he was a community organizer. We call him a neighborhood hero. I grew up in that area, so for me, Nipsey Hussle was a role model to me. I actually had conversations with partner officers about why he was a role model to me, and someone would argue with me like, "Oh, well, he was a gang member and this and that." Like, no, he was a father. He was a son. He was a poet. He was a business owner. That's what he was.
Right.
So, and we all, none of us are, as good as God. None of us walk in the image of God. So, for y'all, for anybody to say like, oh, Nipsey Hussle was this and that, for me, it's like, nah, I'm not here for none of that. But anyways, I would say, yeah, I think they might have sat down and talked about some of the things that I'm trying to make happen about the gang unit and just kind of show how they're actually terrorizing the community when they're supposed to be trying to protect us. I actually, when I first got into the LAPD, I thought that maybe I might be interested in joining the gang unit. But when I got to Southwest Division, I saw that like nobody was calling on the gang members. And so the problems start from officers stopping the gang members. Like that's how a lot of the issues were starting between law enforcement officers. It's not like, oh, they had just beat somebody up or robbed somebody. Like they were probably just chilling in front of a store or at a park and officers pulled up and, tried to do whatever they were going to do that day and they didn't want to go with the program. So I think they were probably going to talk about some of those things, how to change it, make it better for the community members, and just get on a talking stage. Like we as officers and as civilians, we have to both get out of the mindset of us versus them.
So, Nipsey was also somebody that was advocating against those gang injunctions. Like he was vocal about gang injunctions. Can you talk a little bit about just briefly what a gang injunction is? And then I have a follow-up to that question.
Okay, yeah. So the gang injunction is basically like, let's say you're a young man, you're 16, 17 years old, and you are a part of a gang. If you've committed a crime or, they stopped you for a traffic stop or anything like that, they'll ask you, are you a part of a gang? A lot of times the young men, like, they have pride and they don't see the wrong in what they're doing, so they'll say, yeah, they're admit to it or, something like that. And so the officers will write that down on an FI card. They take that card back to the station and they put the young man on a gang file. So moving forward, if you commit a crime, it could be, a number of different crimes, but if you commit one of those crimes, they'll try to charge you for that crime, but then also gang injunction. They'll say you're doing what you're doing for the gang, so you'll get more years for whatever crime you've committed. Also, if you get on, a gang file and you go to prison, once you get out, you can't hang out with other known gang members. So like even if you got on a gang file when you were 20, you did whatever you did, maybe did some time or not. At 28, if you're hanging out with another gang member on probation or something like that, you guys can both go to jail. It's a violation of your probation. So.
Yeah, so Nipsey was very vocal about just how that was unfair, And, you mentioned that some young men might tell the police like, hey, I'm a gang member, because they might not be at that point in their lives that they've grown from that, right? So you talk about Nipsey, who was, an active gang member, but transitioning into just a man, right? He was a business owner, operated several businesses in the Crenshaw and Slauson parking lot, him and his brother. And it just seemed like the LAPD could not get away from viewing him as just a gang member. He, was continuously harassed at his place of business. Do you think that if Nipsey Hussle had a better relationship with the police, that maybe he wouldn't have been harassed so much?
I don't even think that he would have had a chance to have a better relationship with them. I mean, unless he just like pretty much submitted to whatever they wanted him to do. I don't see that there was like, I think once they knew that he was one of those gang members, then that was pretty much it for them. It was like, okay, well, that's him, us versus him. It's us versus them. But yeah, I mean, I would say, yeah, if he submitted more to whatever their program was, that there was obviously a possibility for a better relationship, though.
Eric Holder was just sentenced, 60 years, which a lot of people think is really interesting considering that, him and Nipsey were both rolling 60 gang members. Despite the fact that we've seen the LAPD commissioner have the press conference with the city following Nipsey's murder, LAPD is a known corrupt entity. Do you believe that the LAPD was focused on completely stopping whatever Nipsey had going on over there on Slauson and Crenshaw?
I would say yes. I'm not big into conspiracy theories, but we see it already. Like, um, even now today, I live like 3 minutes from that area, the Crenshaw and Slauson area. It's blocked off. The alley's blocked off. You can't go. There's no memorial site. So I would say yes. I've been kind of following it a little bit, and I think they were saying that the city planned on like taking the whole building from the family or something like that because of something about the gang. It was like a gang, or I'm not too sure,
Trying
but
to put the gang injunction on
yeah,
the
on the
property,
whole property,
on the
the
whole
whole
property.
business and the state, and basically say that's what was going on, and so they're trying to take it now. And so that's interesting because you guys were saying that before he passed away, you guys were going to have this meeting, and after he passed away, instead of trying to uphold his memory and maybe honor his family, you guys are trying to take everything that he built by saying, oh, there's gang involvement going on.
Do you think that there could have been more people involved with Nipsey's death? Maybe even perhaps law enforcement? Do you have any thoughts about that?
I think that there could have been. I've never witnessed any. I've never witnessed any law enforcement officers say that there was something going on or even alluded to it. Um, but there's that possibility. We know a lot of the positive things that he was doing in the community. So there's definitely that possibility that they were that determined to stop what he had going on. That they probably could have sent Eric, what's his last name?
Holder,
Holder,
Junior?
to go and do that. And I think also they said that he was an informant for law enforcement, and that was like I think that was a part of the issue that he had with Nipsey Hussle.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. So we don't know. We don't know what kind of what was going on behind those closed doors. It could have just been that it was a bad day for Eric Holder, and he was mad, or there could have been something deeper behind it that could cause Nipsey to lose his life.
So you mentioned that you live in the community and you see, the Marathon clothing store has been closed down since Nipsey got killed, so it's kind of like everything that positive that he was doing over there is completely stopped. Um, can you just, describe what type of void Nipsey's murder has left on Black men in South Central and the Crenshaw district?
I think I truthfully I think it's a negative and a positive because I think that in a positive way I felt like it opened a lot of people's eyes to what he was doing. Um, Also, I think that it brought the community. Like I know that right after his death, like rival gangs had came together within the community and pretty much put together like a ceasefire. And so that was the positive. But then the negative is that you don't have that role model anymore. Um, a lot of times, like for me, when my brothers passed away, I kind of felt a sense of like I'm doomed. I think that a lot of young Black men had that too, because it's like you can work so hard to try to be a better man and try to build wealth and generational wealth and try to stay in the community and do it, and still you lose your life. And so for a lot of us, it's like, what do you do if you have that option to leave? Do you stay and try to help build, or do you leave and try to keep your family safe and yourself safe? So there was some negative and positive to just coming to the understanding that we had lost him.
Why don't you think more officers speak out, more Black officers speak out about the culture of policing and issues that they're seeing?
Like I said, I think a lot of times they just want to fit in. I know for me, in my third year, I was gonna make like toward $100,000, and I think that plays a role in it. Like, if you speak out, you could get fired, and you're gonna lose that pension, you're gonna lose that 100,000 a year. Are you willing to do that? And so that's the question that they have to ask themselves. Like for me, I have my fiance, I have a 13-month-old daughter, and so it's like there's a sense of, am I gonna let them down if something happens? If I speak out and I get fired or I have to quit. So for a lot of officers, you have to weigh those those pros and cons, and try to figure out what to do.
So what's the plan for you moving forward?
For me, so I wanted to start this even when I was in LAPD, but now that I'm out, I'm even more driven trying to get it started. I'm trying to start a daycare. For me, obviously, we want to teach these young men, but also like I feel like what we're going to be doing is building a nation within a nation. So that's the biggest thing that I'm doing. I have my film. It's called Trading Souls. I'm trying to release that summer 2023. So those two things, just trying to get my daycare together and getting deeper into my film life.
Okay, so yeah, talk a little bit about your film. You said it's kind of like a mix, a Freaky Friday spin, a comedic spin on Freaky Friday.
Yeah, so it's a comedy feature film about two teenagers from opposing backgrounds switching bodies for a week, and they pretty much have to live the life of each other and try to see both the good and the bad of how the other person lives. So one of the main characters is a black dude. He's from South Central. The other one is a white kid from Beverly Hills. And so it's funny how we're talking about this because it's like I feel like if we had to step into the shoes of them and they stepped into the shoes of us, we would get a deeper understanding of, okay, like I said, everybody just wants to make it home at the end of the day. So the film, yeah, we've been working on it for since 2020. My director is Christina Cooper. She's like my film
Hey,
mentor.
shouts out to Christina.
Absolutely. So yeah, that's what the film is about. Like I said, we want to have it released summer 2023.
Okay, definitely. So as we close out, I definitely want to ask you about, how important is it for Black men to avoid getting caught up in the criminal justice system, right? Because you mentioned, it starts off at the juvenile level, maybe just with some like citations or something, but these things actually follow you, And then once you catch a case, you probably get parole, and then it's like the extended, like way that they continue to watch you, basically. So how important is it for Black men to just avoid the criminal court system, by any means necessary?
So I think that it's very important for young black men to try to avoid the criminal justice system. And like we said, it can start off as a citation. Here in Los Angeles, I know that the judicial system is not going particularly hard on criminals. A lot of times there's this thing called cite and release, where you cite a suspect and you release them and you give them a court date. And so a lot of times, like these young men, they aren't thinking, 5, 10, 15 years down the line, and they think, okay, well, if I commit this crime, the risk, I get a citation, I get a court date. The reward could be, $1,000 or, whatever they're trying to do. And so they commit these crimes, and if they get caught, you get that cite and release. And then, another couple months down the line, you get probably one or two more, and that could turn into probation. And then once you get caught in probation, pretty much they can do whatever they want to do. They can go to your house anytime. They go into your car anytime. They can go into your pockets anytime. You're pretty much under a microscope at that point. So it's very imperative for our young men to try to avoid just the criminal justice system altogether, which is not easy sometimes because we don't have the same opportunities that some other races have in America. Saying we don't have the wealth, we don't have the job opportunities. So a lot of times our young men, the only way we see available to make amends is to commit crimes or sell some type of drug and try to get some fast money to either support family or even if it's to buy some shoes. But that first crime, it could be the start of a lifelong situation. I actually had a sergeant say, he said it a couple times. He said, we can't put all these dudes in jail for life, but we can give them life a couple days at a time. Basically saying like, dude, he might not be committing serious crimes, but if we can keep getting him on little stuff, we can keep putting him in jail a couple days at a time.
Any closing thoughts?
Um, I'll just spread a message to black people, just love one another. It could be tough sometimes, But love one another. Stay connected to your family, your kids. Black men, stay connected to your kids. We've got to stay together. We got to come together. There's no better time than now to be together. So it's unified.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Bernard. And yes.